Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Tom.
And this is our travel unit. We're going to a very popular place for at least the Taiwanese here, and that's Japan. They love to vacation in Japan. I don't blame them. It's very nice there. I've been a couple of times now, but I love Taiwan, so there's a lot for me to see here. But I understand people wanting to go out of the country, see something different. This particular area, Kyoto, is gorgeous, I must say.
Indeed, and of course, if people go to Japan, most of them go to Tokyo, because it's the biggest city and it's the most exciting city. But of course, their second choice tends to be Kyoto, which is where we're going today. It's got a lot of old temples and old buildings that survived the bombing of World War II. And so it has this kind of traditional feel to it. And it gives you a sense of being in ancient Japan. And that's what tourists want. They want to feel those vibes. And that's where we're going today. So let's get to it, everybody. Let's listen to the entire contents of our lesson one time. Tammy's travel blog, October 6th. I had an awesome time in Kyoto. My friend and I started with a guided tour of Fushimi Inari Taisha, a Shinto shrine dedicated to Inari, the Holy Spirit of prosperity. It's at the base of Inari Mountain, and other shrines dotted all over the mountain are accessible by hiking trails. While it took a couple of hours to see them all, it was time well spent. The highlight for me was the torii gates. Hundreds of these gates have been set up in rows along the paths. As we passed through these scarlet tunnels, a vivid world of tradition and spirituality unfolded before our eyes. Another thing we both loved was exploring Kyoto's geisha districts. There are several in the city, but we spent most of our time in Gion. There are some picturesque traditional tea houses on Hanamikoji Street, the architecture of which has been wonderfully preserved. Not far from there, we walked along Ninenzaka, a stone-paved road lined with old buildings, and enjoyed stunning views that evoked visions of ancient Japan. Renting kimono in the area was easy, and outfitting ourselves in these garments added to the feeling that we'd stepped back in time. Ponto-cho, a long lantern-lit alley packed with traditional tea houses, is another scenic geisha district. It also has some cool bars. Finally, I'll say that if it hadn't been for Kyoto's gorgeous natural scenery, I wouldn't have enjoyed my trip as much. From the tree-shaded tranquility of Philosopher's Walk alongside Kyoto's canal to the spacious grassy banks of the Kamo River, there were so many places to take in the beauty of nature. I can't wait to go back.
Okay, let's dive in. We're looking at Kyoto, and the title of our article is On and Off the Beaten Track in Kyoto. This is a popular phrase we use in English. If something's off the beaten track or off the beaten path, you can use path too. It just means you're going somewhere that's kind of novel, kind of uncommon, kind of out of the ordinary, something that you don't see every day. So if you're on a beaten path, what it means is just a lot of people have been there before. So think about a trail in the woods. A lot of people have hiked that trail, the dirt is very hard and compact. But if you're going somewhere new, the trail's not very good, right? You're kind of making the trail on your own. So that's what that meaning actually represents. So you're doing something out of the ordinary, and we're going to look at areas around Kyoto that are still kind of new to a lot of people.
Right, and of course, if you're a tourist, sometimes you want to go to places that no one else has been to, so you can have bragging rights about that. But still, you also want to go to the places that you're supposed to go. So those places would be on the beaten track, where everybody goes to. And then the places where few people go to, but you can go to and brag about that, that would be off the beaten track. So this is Tammy's travel blog. Blog, of course, is a web log. It's I'm not sure if they're so popular anymore. People tend to post on social media more nowadays, but you could have a blog online where you enter information about your trips or your daily life, and this is her travel blog. She's talking about her travels, and this is the entry for October 6th. And she says, I had an awesome time in Kyoto. I had a really great time in Kyoto. And my friend and I started with a guided tour of Fushimi Inari Taisha, a Shinto shrine dedicated to Inari, the Holy Spirit of Prosperity. So they had a guided tour, and sometimes that's advisable. They can take you to interesting places and tell you things about them, and you don't have to keep looking in your Lonely Planet travel book or whatever.
Yeah.
And these people can tell you all sorts of things. And this is a shrine, which is like a temple, and it's a Shinto shrine. A Shinto is Shendao in Chinese, and that's one of the two major religions of Japan, Shinto, and I think Buddhism is the other one.
I wanted to mention here, Tom did read this article. It's 2 days, but Tammy is actually a girl's name. It's short for Tamara or Tamara. Some people pronounce it. I have a cousin, Tammy. So that's just a girl's name. Don't name your boys Tammy. That's weird. Okay, so she did have an awesome time. She talked about going on a guided tour. If I'm unfamiliar with a country and they speak a different language and maybe their English isn't very advanced, and I would warn people not to expect a lot of English in Japan. I think we have better English here in Taiwan than the Japanese do. I would definitely get a guide, somebody who could take me somewhere so I didn't get lost, or they give you all this interesting information. Now, who is Inari? It says here in the article, the Holy Spirit of Prosperity. So people all over the world want to be prosperous. That's the adjective form of this noun, prosperity. Prosperity just means the state of being prosperous. If you're prosperous, you're rich and successful, you're doing well. We might say someone is well off or well-to-do. We'll use those phrases as well. So, yeah, I can see why a lot of people want to go there and pray to the prosperity god, maybe to become more wealthy.
I suppose it's the Japanese version of the Taishan here in Taiwan. That's the god of prosperity. If you want to get rich, you pray to the Taishan or the god of prosperity. And here, this is Inari, and it's at the base of Inari Mountain, and other shrines dotted all over the mountain are accessible by hiking trails. Now, if you have a lot of the same thing that are kind of small and they're spread over an area, you can say those things are dotted all over the place. They're dotted all over the mountain. Here in Taiwan, there are temples for the land god dotted all over the place, or there are betel nut stands dotted all over the place. You can find them in all sorts of different locations. Or if you're a teenager, you might have zits dotted all over your face.
Oh, no one wants that. Remember, it's at the base of the mountain. Base just means at the foot of the mountain, the very lowest part of the mountain. So it took a couple of hours to see all of the shrines because there were so many dotted all over the mountain. But here our author says it was time well spent, meaning she enjoyed it. It wasn't a waste of time. She was glad she took the time to see all those places. Now, it took a couple of hours to see them all, and the highlight for her was the Torii gates. My Japanese is terrible. A highlight, guys, just means the best parts of something. If you're studying and you're a student, you will highlight parts of your textbook that you think you might be tested on. That's the verb form. This is the noun. So a highlight of your trip is just one of the best places you got to go and see, or maybe the best restaurant or food you got to taste.
Exactly. And of course, people have different tastes and things that they like when they travel. So for her, she really liked those torii gates. That was the highlight for her. And she says hundreds of these gates have been set up in rows along the paths. So I guess that's why she liked them, because there were so many of them. And as we passed through these scarlet tunnels, a vivid world of tradition and spirituality unfolded before our eyes. So these are gates, and they're usually red in color. Here she's using the word scarlet, which is a shade of red. It's a very bright kind of red. And they had all these torii gates set up in rows. So it seemed to her like they were scarlet tunnels, a tunnel that was a red color. And she said it's a vivid world of tradition. And then she goes on to say, spirituality unfolded before our eyes. Now, spirituality has to do with religion, how you're relating to God or spirits or whatever. That's spirituality. And she's saying it unfolded before her very eyes. If something unfolds, it makes itself visual. You can actually see it.
Right. We use it in different ways. You can use it literally where you're actually taking a piece of folded paper that's been bent and shaped into different shapes. You can unfold it by just spreading it wide or opening it up. If you do origami, you can unfold those little shapes that they make, which are beautiful. Or we use it sometimes in sort of a figurative way. Maybe you're watching a show on TV and there are 10 episodes. And what happens is the story will slowly unfold as the episodes, as you watch each episode. So things continue to be revealed or things are discussed or disclosed over time. That's also a way we use that verb to unfold.
Right, so far she says she's visited this Shinto shrine and she saw those torii gates, which were the highlight for her. And of course, when she was walking through those scarlet tunnels, a vivid world of spirituality unfolded before her very eyes. Now, here in the next paragraph, it says, another thing we both loved was exploring Kyoto's geisha districts. Geisha refers to mostly those women who are painted white, okay? They've got the white makeup on, and they're entertainers, basically. That's what geisha means in Japanese, someone who entertains someone. And there are areas of Kyoto where there are geishas strolling around.
Those are always exciting to see. I saw some real geishas on the street. And, of course we want to take pictures of them. And they were cute. They posed for us. But yeah, they're highly decorated faces. And they have beautiful, beautiful kimonos on. So it's kind of fun. Right now, guys, we're going to take a quick break, listen to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back.Hello
everyone, 我是派老师。今天讲解的是 Unit 11 On and Off the Beaten Track in Kyoto, Day 1。这个单元介绍的是日本京都。台湾有许多听众都非常喜欢日本，甚至有很多同学或许都曾经去过日本。而京都又是许多人心中最能代表日本的城市。第一天课程介绍许多值得探访的自然还有人文景点，包括福建道和大社、奇缘、哲学之道、鸭川等等。好，我们一起来看学习重点吧。好，请同学直接看到第二段的第二个句子。It's at the base of Inari Mountain， 稻荷山的山脚下 ，and other shrines dotted all over the mountains are accessible by hiking trails。请同学呢特别注意的是，这里的 dotted 呢，这里所指的就是星罗棋布。那也就是说，这个山呢，这个稻荷山，它其实有非常多的神社。好，再来，请同学呢看到第四个句子 ，The highlight for me was the torii gates。好，这里 highlight 呢，当然就是指最精彩的部分，或整个旅行当中的高潮。好，所以对我来讲呢，最精彩的部分呢，就是鸟居。再来，请同学看到第六个句子 ，As we pass through these scarlet tunnels， 老师想要请问同学，你们看不看得出来这个 scarlet tunnels 指的是什么呢？前面并没有提到 tunnels 啊，怎么突然间出现了 tunnels 呢？请特别注意的是，这个 scarlet 其实是很好的提示。怎么说？如果有同学去过日本，或者呢看过一些纪录片，就会知道说这个鸟居哦，它其实是用红色所漆成的。所以这边呢所指的 Scarlet Tunnels 就是因为有成排的鸟居，所以呢走过这些鸟居就像是经过隧道一样。那这边所指的 Scarlet Tunnels 就是前面的这个 Torii Gates。好，这在阅读测验当中其实常常都会有类似的题目，请同学在阅读的时候要特别的注意，因为英文的文章常常会做这一些同义词，那用不同的单字来写成， 要测验大家是否真正的理解、了解，其实是同样所指代的东西，只是用不同的词语、不同的单字来替代。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. This is our travel unit, and we're going to a really beautiful place in the world, and that's Kyoto, Japan. But this time, we're going to be looking at some of the uncommon or out-of-the-ordinary spots that a lot of tourists never get to see. You know, if you're a tourist and you just know about the most famous places, that's great. But what if you get a chance to go to some attractions or sites that are off the beaten track? You'll come back feeling like you really had an extra special vacation. We're talking about some of those off the beaten track places, and we're following a lady named Tammy. She's got a travel blog, and she's been writing about her experiences. So she went on a guided tour, and they went to see a lot of these Shinto shrines dedicated to Inari, who is the Holy Spirit or the god of prosperity. And she was describing how it took them several hours because there's so many shrines all over the mountain that they were hiking. And they also had these beautiful torii gates. She said she saw hundreds of these gates as they passed through these scarlet gates. She felt like she was entering a vivid world of tradition and how the folks way back when, this is back in history, demonstrated their spirituality, and it was kind of unfolding or being revealed before her eyes.
And before we took our break, we began to introduce another place they explored in Kyoto, the geisha districts. And there are several in the city, but we spent most of our time in Gion, which is an area within Kyoto. And she goes on to say there are some picturesque traditional tea houses on Hanamikoji Street, the architecture of which has been wonderfully preserved. So again, she's checking out various geisha districts in Kyoto, but she spent most of their time in Gion, and she's talking about some traditional tea houses which are picturesque. If something's picturesque, it looks really nice in the scenery. Okay, if you see really nice houses, say in Italy along the coast of the ocean, you could say that village is very picturesque. Or there are lots of picturesque villages in Greece or in France or various places like that. And yes, these tea houses are probably in traditional style, in traditional Japanese style, on a nice tree-lined street. So she's describing it as being picturesque. And the name of the street is Hanamikoji, okay? And then remember, she says the traditional tea houses on this street, the architecture of which here just refers back to the tea houses that she just mentioned. She's talking about the architecture of those tea houses. It has been wonderfully preserved. Okay, so architecture, of course, is the style of building. Again, it's not the actual buildings themselves. It's about the art or style of the buildings. And she's saying that these buildings have preserved their traditional architecture.
Right. Sometimes we'll hear people misuse that word architecture. They'll say, oh, I like the architectures on the street. No. And what they're trying to use architecture for is to represent a building. It's not a building. It's the style of a building or the design of a building that you're looking at. So yeah, she loves these traditional tea houses. I must say, I love that stuff myself. And if something's been preserved really well, they've taken good care of it, so it still is in good shape. I remember the first time I went to Europe, I was shocked at how some of the old cathedrals and buildings looked. I thought, wow, they just take these for granted. If they were in the U.S., we would take good care of them. They would be well preserved. I think places that have a lot of old history, they just kind of go, well, Yeah, sure, it's all around us. Big deal. Oh, I love old stuff. Well, they've taken very good care of these traditional tea houses, and she loved the architecture or the design of them. Not far from there, she said, we walked along Ninenzaka, a stone-paved road lined with old buildings, and enjoyed stunning views that evoked visions of ancient Japan. Okay, so they're walking along a stone-paved road. You know that it's not dirt, because if you pave the road, you put some sort of material over it, over the dirt. So they're using stones. A lot of the old roads in Europe, too, are cobblestone. They're hard to walk on, I have to tell you, in high hills. So this is a stone-paved road. It's lined with old buildings. What did she see, Tom?
She saw some stunning views, or at least she had some stunning views, and those views evoked visions of ancient Japan. Now, if something's stunning, it catches your attention because it's so awesome. It's very impressive. It's very attractive. A woman can wear a stunning dress that catches everybody's attention at a dinner or a wedding banquet or something like that. And so these are stunning views, and those views evoked visions of ancient Japan. Now, to evoke just means to call something forward, to bring to mind, basically, to remind you of something. And so when you see these buildings, you'll think, oh, I feel like I'm living in Japan like 2,000 years ago. I'm expecting some samurai warriors to come through here at any time.
You can also use evoke to just to say that it started something happening. So it elicited, it caused something to happen. For example, maybe you're in class and you've got a friend and you're passing notes back and forth. Of course, you don't want your teacher to see it, but you dropped a note and it evoked laughter from your classmate. Evoked here just means it caused that laughter to come out. But as Tom says here, it just means it's bringing to your mind past memories or visions that you've seen, maybe pictures of ancient Japan. I love that stuff. Now, renting kimono, those are the traditional Japanese robes that men and women both wear. Renting them is just an easy thing to do in this area. Oh, I'm sure it's a big tourist thing. And outfitting ourselves in these garments added to the feeling that we'd stepped back in time. I know my first trip to Taiwan, I went with a friend, and we, back then they had those wedding shops, and they'd let you rent the wedding dresses or the very pretty dresses, and then they'd take pictures of you. You know, it was a photography studio with really pretty dresses. That was fun. It's kind of the same idea. You put yourself into one of these kimonos, you rent them. They're very expensive if you want to buy one, just FYI, for your information. Garments here just means clothes. And by wearing those beautiful kimono, it added to the feeling that we'd stepped back in time. If you step back in time, it just feels like you're in a place that just reminds you of what it might have felt like to live 100 or 200 years ago or more.
Yes, and kimono refers to those garments that geisha wear, basically. And, of course, you want to put a kimono on yourself and have your picture taken. It's kind of interesting that the word kimono here is not being used as a countable noun.
Right.
We often do this because we're talking about something exotic from another country, so we often make it a non-count noun. So she's talking about the kimono in the area. She could have said kimonos. That's acceptable. They are countable as well. And, yes, you rent them, you pose for pictures, and then you pay the man or the woman your fee, and you're on your way. And Ponto Cho, a long lantern-lit alley packed with traditional tea houses, is another scenic geisha district. It also has some cool bars. So this is an alley, which is a road off the main road, and it's called Ponto Cho, and it's lantern lit. It's got lots of lanterns there, and it's got lots of traditional tea houses. It's packed with those tea houses. It has a lot of them. And again, there are a lot of geisha there. But if you're not into those tea houses, well, you can go to the bars and drink some Japanese beer or sake.
So finally, I'll say that if it hadn't been for Kyoto's gorgeous natural scenery, I wouldn't have enjoyed my trip as much. So the pattern is if I hadn't or if something hadn't, you're going to use to finish off this sentence, you're going to say I wouldn't or he wouldn't have. So this is a good thing to review. Our wonderful authors have written more about this grammar pattern in the magazine. So from the tree shaded tranquility, tranquility just means very peaceful. It's a very peaceful area of the Philosopher's Walk alongside Kyoto's canal to the spacious grassy banks of the Kamo River. There were so many places to take in the beauty of nature. I can't wait to go back. If something's spacious, guys, there's just lots and lots of room. And that must be a great feeling in Japan where everything is very tight. People's homes are even smaller there than they are in Taiwan here.
Very cramped.
Yeah.
And, of course, spacious means there's lots of space there so you can stretch out and you can take in the beauty of nature. Take in here just means to enjoy something. Hey, last Saturday I took in a movie at the local theater. It was pretty good. And she finishes off her entry here by saying, I can't wait to go back. So she's planning to make another trip to Kyoto in the future. Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's listen now to our Chinese teacher.
好，请同学看到第3段的第3个句子这边 There are some picturesque traditional tea houses on Hanami-Koji Street 花见小路这个部分。这个句子老师有2点要说明。第一点呢，就是冠带 which， 这个 which 它所代替的是 some picturesque traditional tea houses on Hanami-Koji Street。好，再来我们看到第2点要请同学注意的就是讲到古迹保存这边。好，请同学特别注意的是我们的词语搭配。古迹保存动词要用什么呢？用 preserve。那这边这些建筑其实都算是古迹了，所以他们这些建筑呢保存得很好。我们用被动语态 The architecture has been wonderfully preserved。再来，请同学呢看到的是第4个句子这边。第4个句子老师一样有2点要讲。第一个呢是 a stone paved road lined with old buildings 这里。首先，请同学把 lined with 画起来，也就是这条道路两旁有什么？我们用的是 lined with 这个片语，就这条道路两旁呢都有老的建筑物。再来第2点，老师想要说的是 evoked 这个动词。evoke 这个动词呢，其实是 e 再加 VOK 这样所组成的。其实这面的这个 E 呢，就是有出来的意思。这个 VOK 有呼唤、呼叫的意思。那所以组合起来就是有引发的意思。那这个句子 Enjoy stunning views that evoked visions of ancient Japan。所以同学如果有机会到这个地方，可以好好欣赏这些美丽的景色，它会引人想起古日本。好，再来我们一起看到第5个句子。第5个句子，请同学特别注意的是逗点之后的 outfitting。这个 outfit 是当作动词来用，好，再来，请同学看到的是第4段的第1个句子。Finally, I'll say that if it hadn't been for Kyoto's gorgeous natural scenery, I wouldn't have enjoyed my trip as much. 这是和过去事实相反的假设语气。请同学看 if 所引导的副词子句，它有一个重要的特征，就是用 had 这个助动词，后面呢再加上过去分词 been， 然后后面主要子句的地方呢会用 would 再加 have 再加 pp。 那意思也就是因为京都它有非常美丽的天然景色，所以呢它才玩得非常的开心。好，以上呢就是我们对这一篇文章第1天课程所做的中文讲解，谢谢大家。
That's all for today, everybody, but please join us again next time when we continue to talk about Kyoto on and off the beaten track. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.